Hi, I am Laura, and I chose instructional conversation for my literacy intervention. I guess first I'll start out with a very brief history. So, the idea of instructional conversation has been around since ancient philosophers. I obtained most of my research and information about IC, or instructional conversation, through Claude Goldenberg, who is kind of a West Coast phenomena when it comes to education and educational methods, not just for special education, but for everything revolving around education. And so I read a paper that he wrote, and that's where most of my substance comes from with regards to the handout and my paper. But he discussed how Socrates and other ancient philosophers really believed that the act of a true discussion is what made people interested, invested, and educated about a certain topic. And so that's the whole idea of instructional conversation, is to engage students in a manner where they read a text that is content related and within the curriculum, and that text is then opened up into a conversation, which is supposed to be more a discussion. And the whole act of this intervention is just to build literacy comprehension. So students read a text, and they try and take what they can from it, and then the teacher more or less acts as a facilitator of a discussion. And the whole point of this intervention is to not have, you're not teaching anything, you're facilitating the growth of critical thinking and understanding of whatever you read. And so one reason I chose this topic is because I've seen it done, and I worked in K through 12th grade, and I've worked in special education from severe needs to mild and moderate needs, and I've also seen it done in the general education classroom. So it's really fascinating with regards to who it actually functions around. So I guess with regards to IC, it strictly pertains to anyone, really. You can be a general education teacher in a kindergarten classroom, or you can be a special education teacher for 12th grade in high school. And no matter where you use this, it will help formulate comprehension within your students. So I guess in summation, who does this target? It targets everybody. It targets all students, special education, general education, especially ELLs, so those with limited English proficiency, because using the oral language helps build their understanding of reading and writing and speaking English. And it functions for all grades as well. So you can read a short picture book in kindergarten, and as long as you're facilitating the discussion in a certain manner, you can get the same benefits as you do as when you are 12th grade AP US History and you're reading Howard Zinn, and you have an instructional conversation about Howard Zinn. So the same methodology can apply throughout all grade levels, all ages, and all learning types, either learning disability, intellectual disability, or general education, or English language learners, or limited English proficiency. So, unfortunately, I am not in a situation where I have access to people who can help facilitate an instructional conversation, but I just, although it is time consuming to actually have a really great instructional conversation, because the teacher needs to pick focal points of the discussion of the text. They need to think of a main idea that they want to surround in the discussion. It's rather difficult to replicate because it is so broad. But an example is, and I've been nannying with a 2-year-old, and her vocabulary is fantastic for a 2-year-old, but I tried demonstrating instructional conversation with her, and she just wasn't really having it. But we read The Giving Tree, and I love The Giving Tree because it spans, it has a large vocabulary, but the concepts are really simple, and it has pictures, so she's probably more engaged with the pictures, whereas I might be more engaged with the actual concept of the story. But the whole point of instructional conversation, I think, there we go. Sorry, my screen might have went black. The whole point of instructional conversation is to emotionally invest the students into a discussion and to make it more of a conversation than something analytical. So by being able for a student, or my 2-year-old that I nanny for, to make a connection to the text is when in the giving tree, when the child asks for apples, I ask, have you eaten an apple? How does it taste? Is it sweet? How did it make you feel? What's your favorite kind of apple? And then, she'll remember that the little boy eats the apple. So that's one way to build comprehension. And so it's just kind of asking emotional questions with regards to the student, which is another difficult aspect. Is in order to make this valuable, you need to really know your students. So another example would be for high schoolers. If they are reading something about prefixes or suffixes, you need to make them emotionally invested within those. So ask questions that pertain to their lives, like, you work in a McDonald's. So did you recognize any prefixes or suffixes within the book that also correlate to working at McDonald's? Or, the main character in the book, can you relate that main character to anyone? And the hardest job as a teacher is to step back and to let the conversations between the students happen naturally. So students can converse with one another. I was reading, as Claude Goldenberg mentions, he says that when he found the greatest benefit in IC was when students actually argued about the content and the teacher stepped back and let them argue and resolve the content on their own. So as far as an actual demonstration, this IC varies so much. But I guess for pinpointed guidelines, pick a text that has meaning to your students and to the curriculum that you're teaching. Pick something that they can read, they want to read. Pick a focus topic of the text. So if the text is about Native Americans within, the Minnesota industry of whatever, Native Americans within a certain area of the country, have them focus on that and try and facilitate well thought out questions that will have the students discuss the topic at hand. However, a fourth thing is be able to step back, and if the students stray from the topic, let them do that, because it's natural and it's going to be more engaging. And some students may have opinions about the topic that you never thought would be possible as an educator. So again, there are no set questions. There's no set precedent to an IC. It's really just a method to get the children or the students emotionally involved in the text that they are reading. And in my handout, there are 10 pinpoints that really help you narrow it down. But again, each point is very vague because the whole concept of IC is to be available to everyone. So please comment or send me an email with questions about IC. I have a lot of resources to give to you, and there are many YouTubes out there that actually demonstrate it, which unfortunately I couldn't do because I don't have a child. But there are just immense amount of resources out there, and it's been around conceptually forever. But within the education system, I think IC has been making a pop-up appearance since like the late 80s. So there's certainly research out there, and IC is one of the most important methods that you can use within your classroom to build comprehension of a text. So again, look at my handout. I can submit my paper to you. I'll give you resources if you'd like. And I hope this video was semi-informational. Again, sorry I can't demonstrate it, but there are lots of resources that you can look into. So thanks, and have a happy holiday.